What's up, everybody? Welcome to the final edition of the Two Buck Sports Podcast with your co-hosts, Rusty Buckets and Myrtle Beach. You can breathe easy. This is not the last episode. It's just the last one with me coming to you from sunny Myrtle Beach as I make the transition back to the hills of North Mississippi on Saturday to be near my esteemed colleague, the infamous Drew Gann, a.k.a. Uncle Buck. Uncle Buck, welcome to the podcast.
What is up? They say you can take the girl out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the girl. There we go. Come on back home. I tell you what, it must be a lot easier though leaving Myrtle Beach in December rather than if you would have gotten this job offer in say March or April with the sun starting to look kind of nice and hot and the time's about to change. You wouldn't have been able to take that job at that time, would you?
No, probably not. When my tan is popping, I've got all my cigars in tow, and I'm sitting on the beach having a good time. It's been real tough for me to leave Myrtle Beach.
Yeah, those beach chairs and coolers packed down with ice. It just hits differently when you're in Myrtle Beach, when you're on a coast. Yeah. But hey, never fear. You got Pickwick Lake right up the road. We can Lake Beach.
Pickwick. Let's go to Piney Grove, man. Let's do this thing right.
No, I mean, I am a huge advocate of Piney Grove and Bay Springs Lake, but for the general population, I'm speaking to try to be more broad to where, maybe our Canadian,
that's what I was thinking of.
Our Canadian listeners have heard of the great Lake Beach that is.
I know. Goat Island is a hit in Brussels, Belgium, where we get a lot of listeners as well. So shout out to our Belgians. Belgium?
Yeah, we've discussed this before. I believe it's Belsh.
Belsh, that's what we came up with. It's the Belsh. Shout out to the Belsh. Come see us at Goat Island. We'll do a special edition, which speaking of, with me being back in the neighborhood, Drew, there's that little tap room around the corner. I wonder if we could get a little sponsorship from them if we start doing some podcasts from that little room that they have.
It would be really awesome because our viewers, our listeners, I'm sure have not been in the Jefferson Street tap room on the square in downtown Ripley, Mississippi. But me and Mr. Buckets here have. And
there's no hard evidence, but there are memories of us singing Dinosaur, arm over arm, swaying in that tap room.
How does it always end up with us singing, swaying, and just making fools out of ourselves,
Every time.
It doesn't matter, you grow, you're a kid and you grow out of my 2-year-old is in the middle of just throwing these righteous fits over everything, getting into those terrible twos. Mm-hmm. And so you grow out of that. And then, you grow out of, wearing onesie pajamas when you get into high school and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then you grow out of everything. But one thing Rusty and I never grow out of, it's singing, swaying with drink in hand to Hank Williams Jr. songs.
Yes, there is video evidence of family tradition. Shout out Toby Keith of Should Have Been a Cowboy. We pulled back and let Whit hit a righteous American. And we let Whit hit that righteous solo that night at Smith and got real quiet for him. And he said, "Oh no!" In the night. And we Dinosaur. There's so many videos, and then there's also pictures of us at the Garth Brooks concert singing.
That was a
word.
Religious experience.
That was true experience.
That next Saturday at my grandma's breakfast table, my Uncle Scotty looked at me and said, "We saw you and Rusty at the concert." And I was like, "Uh-oh." I said, "Where were y'all at?" She said, "We were on the floor right underneath you, and we looked over our head, and you and Rusty were both hanging over the railing at your hips and looked like you were about to fall off." And I was like, "Yep, that was us."
Sounds about right. Shout out to Silky O'Sullivan's. That was about right. But more of those memories to come. I think that's the best part of this. It's bittersweet leaving some great friends and a beautiful place and my coworkers and everything that I've built over the last 6 years. But I know that I'm coming home to my family, friends like yourself, other friends of the podcast. I'm looking forward to being back home. We've talked about it on here. Just those hills keep calling, man, and get an opportunity to come spend some time with my dad, who's not doing the best, and my nephews as they're growing up. Right. 2 out of 3, no, both of them. The 2 older ones have kind of figured it out and deduced. Based on context clues.
Why in the world is Dad buying a one-way ticket to Myrtle Beach.
Like, Clark, you should have had a better plan, but
Right.
apparently Ryder just kept asking enough questions that he kind of deduced it. But Finn is clueless, so
Right.
we're gonna have a nice little surprise for him on Saturday when I get in. But just knowing what's ahead, it makes these sucky times, because it's hard, right? It's been tough this week. There's been a lot of people surprisingly like me. I know our listeners, and especially my co-hosts here, don't understand why.
Yeah, I think they're paid actors.
I've been slipping 20s all week as they've been giving me nice gifts and saying kind things and great social media posts and whatnot. I'm just grateful for what we've built here over the last 6 years. Grateful for the team that I got to build it with. But here is to coming back home to North Mississippi where I belong, hanging out with friends and family, and being back in the mix, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't be happier. I've told Haley our anniversary was on Monday, and I was like, all right, we're going to go out to eat Monday night. And we kind of had Friday night set aside to kind of do something. And Mom and Dad are still going to watch the kids. But, like we're going to have to find a way to see Rusty. He's coming in Saturday. And so you just kind of have to meet him at the airport, It's like the prodigal son has come home. And I just can't help but think, throughout the span of our League of Avengers, we've always had people that's been here, there, and yonderwhere, and we finally had an opportunity. Rusty's finally moved back home. He was, the only one that was far away.
That's true, yeah.
And then Aaron moved, and Rusty just moves back. So I guess it's just destined that we're going to have one person that's going to have to drive in for the League of Avengers draft every year. So,
Aaron Ivey, I know you're listening. Get your butt back to Corinth as soon as you can, man.
Yeah, I'm going to say that's not happening.
Probably not. So, he's back. He's back in Kentucky where he
went
belongs.
home.
He made a homecoming, and I can't. He was one of the outside of Drew. He was one of the first people that I called to kind of talk through this, and because I said, I know you just did this, man, and like tell me about it. Tell me, was it worth it? And his first words were, "You will never regret coming home, man. You'll never regret it. Time with those boys, time with your daddy. You'll never regret it." And so he was a big voice of reason. So shout out Aaron Ivey, friend of the podcast. He's been on here before.
Right.
One of our better episodes, actually, one of the more downloaded episodes, mostly because Aaron was on it, not because of us. But
no, there's a reason why it's one of the most widely downloaded episodes.
So apparently we need to get Aaron back on here so we can improve our viewership again.
Yeah, y'all want to talk about cross-country moves on our podcast next week or something? So,
but hey, I'll say this, man, our YouTube audience is growing. We're starting to get more and more like for some reason people want to see our ugly mugs. I don't get it. I think, you know what I think it is? It's because Ted has been on the podcast.
Tree in the back. Oh.
No, it's because Ted's been on the podcast more. Ted keeps making these like big head appearances where he'll pop in, and I think it's because Waldo? Of Ted. That's it. When is he gonna pop in?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't blame anybody for logging into this and watching an hour and a half long podcast just for the opportunity to get a glimpse of my dog Ted. So, I mean, I don't blame him.
Yeah.
So
handsome fella that he is, but Drew, there's been a lot of sports happening this week. This is that time of the year when college football is winding down. We've got our champions. Alabama won the SEC. Surprise to probably few. It just felt like one of those years that Nick Saban was going to do a Nick Saban thing. I said this on the podcast last year when David Pollack said that Georgia is now the standard of college football, and Nick Saban gave that look down to the floor. Right. I told you on this podcast that Nick Saban's going to win the SEC next year and probably win a national championship.
I'm with you.
1 out of 2, man.
Going into that game, I felt like it was a 50-50 shot. Like it was not an upset that Alabama beat Georgia. No. It was just so fitting. It seemed to be like in the year in which we were going, the last year of the 4-team playoff, and transitioning into a 12-team playoff next year, it just seemed so fitting that chaos ensued and just left carnage all over the NCAA football landscape, and more hurt feelings than happiness along college football, and we're going to get into that. And it's kind of one of the downsides. Rusty and I were talking off the air, last night. It's kind of one of the downsides of recording a podcast on a Thursday, because you get to really prepare for the week upcoming. But the College Football Selection Committee announced on Sunday afternoon the decision to leave Florida State out of the playoff, and I have lots of thoughts about it. But here we are on Thursday, and I'm just really kind of scared everybody's heard them. Yeah. But I'm going to give them to you anyways, because this is my podcast. This is our podcast.
I'm going to give my thoughts. Talk about it. Real quick, though, while we're on, we normally do our Bucks Best in Beef. I do have one pretty significant beef I want to talk about with the SEC. And this is probably a homer thing, and this is going to pertain to a small portion of our listeners who are also fellow Mississippi State fans. But I got a beef that I want to air real quick. I am sick of the letter on your jersey winning awards. Listen to this stat line. The SEC Defensive Player of the Year had 50 tackles, 14 and a half for a loss, 10 sacks, 0 interceptions, 1 pass deflection, and then 2 forced fumbles. That is your SEC Defensive Player of the Year, Dallas Turner from the University of Alabama. A good football player. Probably going to make some money on Sunday.
Player.
Sure.
Yeah. Dirty, but good.
Very dirty.
Yeah.
What he did to Jaden Daniels was criminal.
Yeah.
Listen to this stat line. So this was your not SEC Defensive Player of the Year. He was the AP Defensive Player of the Year, but not the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. Mr. Bookie Watson at Mississippi State. Nathaniel Watson, or 14, phenomenal linebacker, 4-year starter in Starkville with 137 tackles. Drew, he almost tripled up Dallas Turner's tackles. 13 tackles for a loss, 10 sacks, an INT, 3 pass deflections, 2 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, 3 forced fumbles. He almost tripled him up in tackles. You cannot tell me that there was an unbiased party looking at the stat line and saying Dallas Turner was the best defensive player in the SEC this year. There's absolutely no way. It was crap. It was a complete hose job. There's only one thing that won Dallas Turner that award, and it's that A in the middle of his jersey on his chest. Nathaniel Watson is rightfully so your defensive player of the year. He had 89. So Dallas Turner only had 50 tackles on the year. Bookie had 89 tackles in SEC play alone. In the last 2 weeks of the season, he had 42 tackles. Anyway, that's
listen,
my for the week.
I watched a lot of Mississippi State this year. Bookie Watson is great. Don't get me wrong. But it's like the most valuable player of a defense. And how many times has a substantial award, an MVP or DPOY or anything, any award, gone to the best player on a terrible defense?
5 and 7.
Like,
I mean, I get it, but
the reason why Bookie Watson has so
not
many
a team
tackles,
award.
No, I get it. But the reason why Bookie Watson has so many tackles is because it's like there is no defensive line at all.
Well, and that he's on the field for 40 minutes a night.
I know. I mean, I get it, but there's been remarkable, individual statistical seasons that will not be shown in record books because you played for terrible teams.
There's a reason that usually in the SEC, the leading tackler plays for Vanderbilt, and it's because they get about 120 plays a night.
Anytime you see like a leading tackler of a defense being like a linebacker like a safety, that's always funny to me because always like a Vanderbilt safety because it's like the third line of defense, but it's him or a touchdown.
He's tripping people 30 yards downfield.
Right, and so I get it. Bookie Watson needs a lot of credit. He was really good this year. He's had a really good career for Mississippi State.
And he'll be a decent pro, but he's a great college linebacker.
Yeah, he's kind of heavy-footed, but to play in the pros, but
he'll be a great pass rusher. They'll put him at an end like a Arden Key or Josh Allen, and he'll have one job, and that's just to put pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah, and so he deserves his props. All these SEC, he's going to the pros this year. He's not. I guarantee you, he's not upset about not winning SEC Defensive Player of the Year because he's already training for, combine, pro days.
And honestly, he'll be a late flyer, probably a free agent pickup because he's not big. He is heavy-footed. He's not the fastest linebacker, but he just has a nose for the football and he pressures quarterbacks. And so he'll be a specialist in the NFL. He feels to me like a Patriot, like somebody that Bill Belichick's going to pick up after the draft or really, really late, and is going to have a solid career in the NFL. He won't be all-pro. He probably will never make a Pro Bowl, but he's going to be that guy for some defense that just consistently on Sundays just makes plays when you need him to. So shout out Bookie Watson. He did make a comment on it about Twitter. Again, I'm probably more upset. Mississippi State Twitter is probably a lot more upset than he is, but shout out Bookie Watson. You should have been your SEC Defensive Player of the Year. So we'll kind of stay in the lane of college football, Drew. You kind of teased this earlier. You and I have talked a little bit. One of my favorite things that came out of Selection Sunday was the audible gasp that Michigan let out when they found out they're having to play Alabama. They do not want that smoke because they know that that's a team that's experienced, and they were hoping for Florida State with their third-string quarterback from Covington, Tennessee, who mustered 65 yards of offense at one point against Louisville the other night. So tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, so regarding that in particular, that audible gasp was, I think, more surprised. And I think they were upset, but not because they were playing Alabama. I think they're going to be juiced for that matchup. And Michigan's a lot of things this year. including cheaters. But they've never
Speaking
been
of,
scared of anybody.
real quick sidebar. I'm sorry to interrupt. Real quick
Yeah.
sidebar. I know you saw this. Our listeners probably saw this. Eli Drinkowitz is one of my favorite coaches in college football.
Yeah.
Did you see? He was
He's
on
so
air.
corny.
He is. He's the ultimate dad joke, but on air with ESPN. He goes, "Oh, hang on. Colin Stallings is calling me. He's got some
You want to
help for the
say
game coming
Connor
up."
Stallions one more
Connor
time?
Stallions, man.
Welcome to the Two Buck Sports Podcast.
Hey, I haven't messed one up in weeks, man. That's my first one in a while, but continue.
Yeah, Eli Drinkwitz is like dad jokes is perfect for him because you could tell when he's delivering that joke, he had told everybody in the room like, "Hey, I'm gonna do this joke real quick. Hey, everybody watch this." And then he got all juiced up and excited for himself. Like it was a very good line. Came across like, so corny. Like anybody could have delivered that better than Eli Drinkwitz did. But props for pulling.
He at least had the name right. I didn't. So as you were.
Yeah. Continue. So my thoughts. I don't think that Michigan is going to be scared of Alabama by any means. But I do think that they got really excited and was really hoping that Florida State would be that 4 seed for obvious reasons. You're down Jordan Travis, and let's just reset for a second and go back to the beginning. That the College Football Playoff Selection Committee, because, committees are great.
Sure.
Mike Leach once said, America loves committees,
Committees.
Yeah.
Great. All-time quote.
Yeah. So they came up with the consensus being the 1 seed Michigan, the 2 seed Washington, the Pac-12 champion.
Shout out Dylan Johnson too, who's just having a phenomenal year for him, Mississippi State transfer.
Can I get one sentence out, please? All right, here we go.
Wow.
Michigan, Washington, Texas, and Alabama. And so the big controversy was for that 4 seed. And the longer this week goes on, the more I despise the fact that Alabama's in there. I do. I just feel like it is so wrong. I feel so wrong for one of the top 3 most obnoxious fan bases of all time. I cannot believe I'm defending them. But Florida State was robbed. And like, if you cannot count on being an undefeated conference champion with no other undefeated conference champions to choose from,
exactly,
then what are we doing here? I played both sides with this for several days. Leading up to it, I was like, I get why they would want to put in Alabama and Texas. I get it because of competitiveness and Vegas lines and like all this other kind of stuff. I get it. I would understand why they want to distance themselves from a team that doesn't have their star quarterback. But then after it happened, I was just like, it just feels wrong. Like It feels so wrong, and it's so fitting that it happens. You're going to leave this 14 playoff with just a bad taste in your mouth because it should have been 12 this whole time.
Because we did the same thing with the BCS. I kept hoping they were going to call like an emergency 16, give Michigan and Washington a bye and call an emergency 16 playoff. I know they wouldn't do it for logistics, but that would have been great.
I would have done a play-in. A play-in would have been awesome.
My God.
You put Alabama and Florida State. Yeah.
But here's my thoughts on it. The 4 most deserving teams would be the top 3 and Florida State. That's the most deserving teams.
Absolutely.
But right now, the 4 best teams are who are in the college football playoffs.
I don't even know that you can make that argument. Because
you watch Florida State.
No. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. You cannot tell me, you cannot make an argument for 4 teams in a college football playoff if you're saying the best teams in football and it not include Georgia.
Well, here's the thing. Who just beat the best team in football?
You're just saying. I can make a solid argument.
I can make a solid argument when the best team just lost.
No. I'm talking about 4 teams, top 4 teams, the best 4 teams in college football. Mm-hmm. I think Alabama and Georgia are 2 of them. I think that you penalized Georgia, and if you're saying that these are the 4 best teams, then I think you got it wrong. But if you're not saying that if you're saying that the 4 best teams are in here, you're wrong. And if the 4 best teams aren't in there, then they needed to be in there based on merit. So they did a half measure. They didn't put them in on merit, or Florida State would have got in there. And they didn't put them in there because of talent, or Georgia would have gotten there.
Sure. But on the field, Alabama beat Georgia. So on the field, on a neutral field, Alabama was better than Georgia.
Of course, and that's why I think both
win.
of them should be in there.
And so, like, of the teams that should have got left out, it's probably Texas. It's probably Texas should get left out.
This is how
you have two undefeated conference champions in Michigan and Washington, and then you have the two other best teams, Georgia and the team that beat Georgia.
Yeah, so this is how I would have done it. I would have had Michigan 1, Washington 2, Texas 3, Florida State 4. Changing the 4 seed, jumping up Florida State, dropping down Alabama. And this is my rationale. You've got 3 undefeated conference champions. They should be in. If you go 13-0, you deserve to be in.
100%.
Then you're picking between Alabama, Texas, and Georgia. Texas beat Alabama at home. Mm-hmm. Alabama beat Georgia. Now
it's Texas.
It's Texas. Now the problem is, and I'm going to tell you this right now, we can talk about injured quarterbacks. We can talk about anything you want to talk about. The one thing that trumped everything, I'll believe this and you won't convince me otherwise. The one thing that got Alabama in this playoff is ESPN's tie with the SEC. Money.
100%. It's money, man.
It is.
It's a money move.
If you keep in mind, last year, this was the ESPN bought the rights to the SEC Game of the Week. It will be switching from CBS to ESPN next year for the 2024 season.
Yep.
And there was in no situation that that the SEC champion, Alabama or Georgia, was not making the college football playoff. And the problem is I can tell you for a fact that the college football playoff selection committee was not choosing between Alabama and Florida State on Sunday morning. They were choosing between Texas and Florida State. And they could not, in their good conscience, put Florida State and Alabama in and leave Texas at home.
Yep.
It was just not going to happen. And they were not going to leave it. They were not going to have a 4-team playoff without an SEC school. Never.
Especially because we're in a decade of dominance, that there's been an SEC school either winning or playing for the national championship for the better part of the last decade.
I don't even care about the dominance. It's money. Money.
That was my next point. Because of that dominance, they're going to travel really well. There's a ton of money there. And then like you said, ESPN is picking up the SEC. Gary Danielson did his final sign off after the Iron Bowl. This was it. And like all of our lives, the SEC's biggest game of the week has been on CBS at
right. I'm going to miss that.
I am too.
The montage
is 100% a money move. Oh, I know.
The montage, the 6-minute montage of CBS saying goodbye to the SEC, and had so many clips. I mean, you got to see the Mount Cody block against Tennessee. You got to see the Senquez Golson interception in the back of the end zone, the Katy Perry College game against Alabama at Oxford.
The Georgia Hail Mary, there's so many cool things.
Hail Mary against Georgia.
Like back and forth. Like the Auburn Miracles, like it was a cool montage. And I'm gonna miss the SEC on CBS, but this is a money move. They have zero repercussions. Like, right, this is it. Next year they don't give a crap because the top 12 teams would have made it. And I will stand an argument that this year would have been one of the most epic 12-team playoffs with some of those dynamic teams like Ole Miss, Missouri, who's a Cinderella team, Oklahoma sneaking in. Like, there would have been some great football games leading up to this, but I'm excited about the 12-team playoff. This was a money move. You're absolutely right, Drew, and I apologize for interrupting for you earlier, but this is you're absolutely right. This is a straight up money move to make money for these padding these pockets by getting the SEC in, because the SEC is the biggest money conference in college football right now.
Well, and let me just make one more further point for Florida State. And you look at Florida State's wins, 13-0, okay? You had a win against LSU, finished number 13, 12 to 13 in the country. They had a win on the road at Florida. That's 2 SEC wins. They beat Clemson. And if you can point to me 3 games that Michigan has won this year that anyone should care about at all, I'll buy your lunch.
Yeah,
because
100%.
Michigan played a 1-game football schedule. Or we'll give you Penn State, played a 2-game football schedule. I can make the argument that I have not seen anything out of Michigan that makes me think that they're better than Florida State right now. I mean, just looking at the record. Yes, it's been dominant, but that Big Ten is awful outside of Ohio State and Penn State.
You and I could go coach a team that would beat most of the Big Ten.
Right.
I mean, they played Iowa, a hapless offense who had more punting yards this year than they had offensive yards.
And I just don't like the
And
college
still
football
went 10-2.
playoff committee
Mhm.
like trying to predict outcomes of games. Like they're telling me that Florida State has no chance against Michigan. Like, but I'm just supposed to believe them. Like those
Yeah.
people who are athletic directors and congressmen and attorneys and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like I don't want any business of them telling me what's going to be a good matchup or not.
Nope.
We spent the whole week listening to leading up to championship weekend, championship Saturday, that said Oregon was going to boat race Washington. They were 10-point favorites.
Yeah.
And Washington beat them again. Like,
Yeah.
leave room for excitement and upset and a Cinderella in this. And they earned the right. They should have been.
100%. Michael Penix had a great game. Dylan Johnson had a great game. They beat a very good Oregon team and earned the right to be there. And so, I think the top two are dead set. I think that Washington-Texas game is going to be an epic football game. Epic football game. I'm like, I don't care. I know what I'm doing New Year's Eve. Part of it is going to include New Year's Day. Part of it is going to include that Texas-Washington game. Michigan and Alabama, I feel like I know what's going to happen there, but I'm watching Texas and Washington.
Yeah, I told you afterwards. I was like, I think I told you leading up to it, like Florida State needs to be in. I believe they should be in. But an Alabama-Michigan game and a Washington-Texas game, that's two incredible matchups. Oh, my goodness. Football. This is going to be so much fun.
Oh, my God.
So I feel so bad. I'm 100%. I may even buy the shirt. If Florida State goes and beats Georgia in the Orange Bowl, for them to do the UCF, we're national champions. We're 14-0. Oh, I would be so in. Like 2
claimed national championships in Florida in the last 6 years.
We all kind of patted UCF on the head to, no, it's cute. Yeah, you have your thing. Yeah. But Florida State has a legitimate, if they go win convincingly against Georgia, and then the college football playoff is tight and they're beating each other up, it's low scoring, they people could come out at the end of the year and have Florida State ranked number 1.
I would love that. Oh, love that.
Beautiful. Oh,
love that.
It'd be amazing.
As fans of underdogs who don't really, Ole Miss is great this year. State obviously terrible. I would love chaos. I'm here for chaos.
Yeah. Give me a riled up fan base, because those Noles, you get them half cocked and pissed, they'll march on something.
Absolutely. And you got their governor, petitioning for them. It's a mess down there.
My favorite. We may be about to say the same thing, but Ron DeSantis is anti-Disney. He thinks Disney's grooming children or something, and in the state where Disney World is their biggest attraction,
tourist destination.
And so they were the college football selection committee punished Florida State because ESPN is
a Disney company.
The Disney company. So because of Ron, the governor of Florida, and his takes against Disney, that they've punished Florida State. I love that. See, that's the kind of stuff you don't get out of the NFL.
No, this is why college football is the greatest sport in the world. You can keep your soccer overseas. College, you're not going to get this anywhere else. You're not going to get a sitting governor attacking your governing body. And then not only that, and then the other thing I was going to mention was Mike Norvell and Kirby Smart in their interview.
Yeah.
Those dudes could have wanted to be anywhere else in the world. Neither one of them wanted to be on that press conference, and it showed. And I love Mike Norvell. He was a great coach at Michigan. Just seems like a really great dude. Does it the right way. Memphis, the beautiful land in the world. Shout out Mike Norvell. Big fan of the podcast, but he does it the right way. I was hoping that that they would get in, and it just didn't work out that way. And so we've got some epic access bowls. We've got Florida State, Georgia, which would be a great game.
Oh yeah, must watch TV.
Yeah,
the Orange Bowl.
I'm intrigued by the Liberty Oregon game. I think Oregon will probably just boat race them, but there's a chance that we can have that Cinderella Boise State story there.
The Tostitos Fiesta Bowl took the bullet this year. That the Peach took last year with the having the Group of 5 team, and they paired them with Oregon, and Bo Nix is not going to play in that game. Nope. It's going to be one of those games. It looks like those Group of 5 teams tend to win a good bit of those New Year's Six matchups because nobody wants to play.
Nobody cares.
It just stinks. That's why the playoff needs to come up. But the expanded playoff needs to come up because Bo Nix would not be opting out early to play Liberty in the first round of the 12-team playoff.
But then you got Iowa, Tennessee, which like Iowa's offense cannot move the football. No thanks.
No, that's so funny to me because I love the fact that Tennessee has to go play Iowa again.
I know. I love it. And then the only one that might be worse is Wisconsin, LSU. Take a nap during that. Auburn, let's see, Ole Miss, Penn State. We'll get to that here in a minute. Missouri, Ohio State, like that could be a good. I'd love for Missouri to just go up and smack him in the mouth. There's some decent bowl games here. That Arizona Oklahoma game, Oregon State Notre Dame with the DJ Ugalele is not going to play in that game. He's in the transfer portal. But Drew, you drew a pretty interesting draw. You're going back to the Peach Bowl. You're playing Penn State, one of the big powerhouses in the Big Ten. Give us your thoughts on your bowl game, sir.
Yeah. So first things first. Me and you disagree on the importance of just attending a bowl game, but there's no doubt in anybody's mind that getting to a New Year's Six bowl game is something that you should absolutely be proud of. You got to think this time next year, if you're in a New Year's Six game, that's the equivalent of being in the playoff.
Right.
And Ole Miss would have been the last team in the playoff this year. They finished the season number 11. The 12th seed would have gone to Liberty. And so it's extremely exciting. So I was looking at two things going into it. I was starting to think that it was going against us. I didn't think that we were going to end up in a New Year's Six game. We were going to end up in the Citrus Bowl against Iowa. I was kind of scared of. I didn't want any part of that. It would not have been exciting. It would have felt unfair a little
anticlimactic.
To have one of your best seasons ever and not be able to feel like you got the appreciation you deserve by getting a spot in the New Year's Six game because of just so many undefeated teams, honestly. Mm-hmm. And it seemed to start trending that way Sunday morning, and I kind of got confident about the time, about 1:30 when the selection show came on. And so, I felt pretty confident we were going to land in either the Cotton or the Peach Bowl. And the first bowl that was announced was the Cotton Bowl, which is Ohio State and Missouri. And so I was like, okay, well, it's got to be the Peach or it's going to be the Citrus. And we're playing Iowa. And that was pretty drastic range of emotions between one outcome or the other. And then it popped up that Ole Miss is playing Penn State in the Peach Bowl. And I'm stoked about it. I mean, Rusty, I'll just be honest with you. The last time I went to the Peach Bowl, it was a bloodbath. Ole Miss lost 42-3 to TCU, a TCU team that was that felt that they got gypped and got left out of the 14 playoff, and they just beat the brakes off of us. But this is a new year. Here we are, going to be in 2023, January the 30th, 23, in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia, playing Penn State. And the most exciting thing about it is that it's a name. You're playing a name from a big conference, and it's a name that you've never played before. Ole Miss has never played Penn State.
That's cool.
In my lifetime, we have played Oklahoma State in 2 or 3 different bowl games. We've played Texas Tech in 2 or 3 different bowl games. I'm so glad we got somebody out of the Big Ten instead of the Big 12.
Yeah.
Ohio State would have been awesome to play, I'll be honest. But Penn State is like it feels like a winnable game against a consistently top 10 program. Like, I couldn't be more excited. You look at there's so many different aspects to bowl games and roster management for bowl games that just put the game itself in such jeopardy. Like, I don't know how Vegas odds makers do it, but there's so much transfer portal stuff. There's opting out to get ready for the draft. There's a litany of different things, and whether or not they're just going to not care. If Ole Miss goes to the Citrus Bowl, like, there's a real possibility that they're just not going to care. You go get your perks and try to, get a head start on the offseason and getting healthy and have a good time. I think that Ole Miss will absolutely care about this Peach Bowl game against Penn State in Atlanta. I believe that they will come and take it seriously and go out with a bang. That 2014 team was there to party. They going to Atlanta for the Peach Bowl was the victory more than actually winning the game. And they partied hard the night before, and it got away from them quick. I don't think this Ole Miss team will do that. They've got a lot to prove. They've got the chance for the first time in school history to win 11 games, and you've got a huge program. You're going up against, James Franklin, one of the greatest coaches in football, and one of the most prestigious, long-standing, competitive, historic programs in Penn State. Yep. I couldn't be happier, if I'm being honest with you.
I mean, it's a great thing, man. It's funny. I saw Brett McMurphy kind of leak out that Ohio State was an option for Ole Miss, and before I could finish reading the tweet, I had a text from Drew about if we're gonna play Ohio State, like, let's go.
Yeah, I believe I told you I was gonna have to wear sweatpants if that was gonna happen, because, like I said, all I cared about was a New Year's Six game against a big name. I did not want to. I told some friends, and I don't know if I really meant it or not. Looking back, I probably didn't, but I told him I'd rather play Iowa in the Citrus Bowl than Liberty in the Cotton. I wouldn't rather do that. I'd rather say I got 11 wins. But
I mean, it's a great opportunity against, like you said, a perennial powerhouse. It's a name. If you can beat Penn State, like, that's just a name. It's an ipso facto home game. Atlanta's a lot closer to Oxford than it is to College Station, PA, or College Park, PA.
No, Happy Valley.
Happy Valley is in the
College
state.
Park, College Park, Bubba Sparks. That's Maryland.
Yeah. Anyway, wherever it is in PA, shout out to our Nittany Lion fans. But it's a great opportunity to go get a great win and a signature win, right, to close out the season.
Right.
Bowl games don't matter, but it's an access bowl. This is when you win this one. This helps you in recruiting. This helps you in the national brand because you beat a team like Penn State.
Yes.
And now that Lane Kiffin is for sure coming back next year, shout out to him. Didn't really get involved in the coaching rumors. That was a big step forward for him. It's an opportunity to build some momentum. You go beat Penn State, and you beat them convincingly. The world is your
I don't believe that a loss in a access bowl hurts you, but a win you can really translate. And Ole Miss is already heavily in the mix. I'm Rusty. I told you I wasn't going to get excited over transfer portal, but there's lots of rumors about Walter Nolan, the former number one high school player, went to Texas A&M, defensive tackle, stud. Got in the portal, and he's flirting with Ole Miss. And Chris Paul Jr., they led Arkansas in tackles last year as a freshman with 3 years of eligibility. There is some real gettable targets here that if you can just keep that train moving forward, it will not hurt.
I am trying to remain calm. We'll talk about the transfer portal. We'll talk about Mississippi State in a few minutes. But there's a name in the transfer portal that has a real shot at coming to Starkville that would give us the best quarterback since and other than Dak Prescott. Shout out to John Bond in program history, but we'll continue with that here in a minute.
John Bond. I'm telling you, if that's number 2 in your history, you've got a pretty deplorable history.
Listen, man, that's a wing team master, boy. He run that thing with like nobody. I mean, Matt Wyatt, Wayne Mackin are good, but we're going like John Bond's one of the best in program history, man. He beat Alabama 3 times.
That's the thing about Mississippi State that makes me laugh sometimes. Is like Dak Prescott is like on the, that he deserves a statue, okay? But number 2 is everybody's like, I feel like everybody loves Matt Wyatt, and it has nothing to do with his playing career. It's just the fact he's on the radio.
He loves Mississippi State,
and he like lost out the job to Wayne Madkin in that 98 season. But nobody talks about Wayne Madkin. Nobody
about Matt Wyatt. Yeah, because he was
Matt Wyatt because he's on Super Talk Mississippi.
And he was a Mississippi kid. He loved Mississippi State. When Wayne Madkin came in from out of state, like Matt Wyatt is the dude. But like if we get this name out of transfer portal, one Dylan Gabriel,
that's done, right? He's going to Oregon.
No, that was a rumor. That has not been confirmed. That is not.
Well, let me put a bow on Ole Miss real quick, and we'll get to it. But yeah, that momentum has the potential to really snowball here. Like you said, Lane was not in any coaching rumors. I believe that was twofold. I believe that he was not going to intentionally leak his name out anywhere. I think he was kind of told to quit that. And 2, I don't think there was any real landing spots for him. We talked about the possibility that the coaching carousel just doesn't really spin this year. And Texas A&M striking out and landing on their 5th option with Mike Elko really shut down the whole carousel altogether and didn't really open up a spot that Lane would really that really considered Lane and
Right.
Lane considered.
Right.
So, yeah, you've got opportunity to really start rolling here. And, I mean, just go out there and put the pedal down. That's all you can do.
Yeah, that's all you can do. So we kind of talked about it a little bit. Mississippi State, obviously, lackluster year. Got a great new hire in Jeff Lebby. I'm still at about a 6.5 out of 10. But if he can start pulling some of these names out of transfer portal, Dillon Gabriel is one that's out there. He was Lebby was his OC at UCF. He followed him to Oklahoma. He's been under Lebby now for 3 years and worked in his system. There's a really good chance he comes to Starkville. There's also a really good chance he goes to Oregon. That's one of the other schools that he's looking at. Obviously, if you want to go win a national championship, that's where you want to be at. But if you want to showcase your talent and be in a system that you come to Starkville and you play for Jeff Lebby. Other names that are being kicked around for Mississippi State are KJ Jefferson is a name that's kind of come up. DJ Ugalali from Oregon State is another name. Ugalele. I'm never going to pronounce that right. Drew, you can give me a...
For the sake of this podcast, good Lord, please get DJ Ugalele.
Because I just call him DJ U. You might have you were a lot closer than I was. We'll just call him DJ. But apparently, in the last week, his name has really come up strong in Starkville as a name, as a guy who could transfer there. Long story short, Chris Parsons was named to the freshman All-SEC team this year. He's super raw. He is not the quarterback for Mississippi State next year. It's somebody from the transfer portal. And honestly, if you can get any of those three guys, if I had to rank them in order, I would take Dillon Gabriel obviously first.
Absolutely.
KJ Jefferson second. DJ U second, KJ Jefferson third. That would be my top three. And obviously, you go swing for the fences. You give Dillon Gabriel whatever it takes to get him to come to Starkville. And if he decides to go to Oregon, then that's fine. He obviously picked a better program. But you don't miss on DJ. You don't let him go to Florida State. That's the other team that he's kind of being linked to, which obviously is a better program. But you just that's the one you can't miss on. But Dillon Gabriel with those strong Jeff Lebby ties, there's a lot of things we have to do. Oklahoma has got 19 players now in the transfer portal, including 2 running backs and a wide receiver in DJ Graham, who's a really good football player. They had a 4-star high school recruit that decommitted from Oklahoma the same day that Jeff Lebby left. Not saying these dudes are coming to Starkville, but if Lebby can pull those guys, all of a sudden this becomes a team next year that, even though that schedule is going to be brutal, this becomes a team that's going to be competitive. That's going to have some fight because you actually brought on some talent that knows his system. But it starts and ends with Dillon Gabriel. If you can somehow convince that dude to come to Starkville, maybe you get Zavion Thomas. We talked about him a little bit off air. Zavion Thomas is 100% an LSU Tiger. He is from LSU. He's one of the few good receivers that got away only because Malik Neighbors went to LSU.
Right.
But other kids graduating and they got a spot for him. He's a Tiger, 100%. It's like the Squidward meme coming up, right? Like Tiger. Like that's what he is.
So it makes so much sense.
But if you can get Dillon Gabriel, maybe you can convince Zavion Thomas to come back.
You think that Zavion Thomas going to LSU next year had anything to do with that Google NIL deal that he signed like 3/4 of the way through a terrible football season?
Tampering. I'm calling it. Tampering. I'm calling the feds right now. Call me Steve Robinson.
LSU's got Google in their pocket.
I'm sending emails right now. NCAA, look at it.
There is no such thing as tampering anymore. And anybody if you were to get mad at Ole Miss or anybody for tampering with your players, or that goes for anybody, any listener out here, if you think that your players are being tampered with, get over it. Because your coach is doing the same thing.
Tampering,
it's so funny
100%.
to me. There is a checkbox on the transfer portal website that says "Do not contact." Like a player can get into the portal and check "No coaches contact me," and then somehow he commits to another school. Without ever talking to coaches. It is the weirdest.
I'm telling you, man. Like, if you don't think that when Jeff Lebby was taking this job at Mississippi State that he didn't tell Dillon Gabriel, "I want you to go with me," we probably need to talk about the Tooth Fairy too, because you're delusional. Like these guys, I like to think that Zach Selman didn't hire Jeff Lebby without knowing that there was a small chance that Dillon Gabriel might follow, or that he'll be able to pull some of these guys.
You can't make a hire with that expectation. You got to hire the guy for the guy. That's a cherry on top.
But you got to hire him knowing that he can work the transfer portal, that he can get these guys to come in, because that's the future of college football. And maybe Dillon, like a specific name like Dillon Gabriel, but just knowing that there's a shot that guy could come to Starkville, you make that hire.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I think you have to make the best hire. But you do have to know that he can work the transfer portal. But it's not like it was contingent on Dillon Gabriel.
No. But that's just
Dillon
somebody
Gabriel,
he can pull.
You're going to see how Mississippi State wants to use their money. I think is the best way to put that.
Sure.
They're having an influx of money. I don't know how much they've got. I know that I think Ole Miss had somebody tell me recently that they're operating with like a $10 to $12 million budget.
Mississippi State, after Jeff Lebby took the job, raised $2 million in about 3 or 4 days, which is good for us.
Let's say that Mississippi State has $8 million. Okay, I think that's probably being a little generous, but it's a round number.
Sure, we'll go with it.
We're going to see how they prioritize this because Dillon Gabriel, if they go get Dillon Gabriel, they will have to match Oregon's number. They'll have to match Washington's number, USC's number.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so if they go get Dillon Gabriel, you're going to know that they took a massive hit on their NIL budget. And so you kind of have to work around the margins with receivers and offense and defensive line and other positions. And so you're going to see, but you go get a guy like KJ Jefferson and then go get him some weapons. It's just like building an NFL roster now. Except it's kind of like building a baseball roster. There is no salary cap. Nobody knows how much they're getting paid, and nobody knows how much teams are spending or how much they want to spend or anything.
Right. Sure.
And so you're just going to have to see if you can compete and build a team with it.
And we don't have Nike money
as possible.
We don't have Nike money. So if Oregon throws the absolute armored truck at him, we can't compete. But if he wants familiarity that's going to showcase his skill set, you come to Starkville. I mean, that is what it is. You come and you do it in the best conference in the country. You come do it in Mississippi State against some top-tier opponents, against some top-tier – again, remind our listeners, our 4 road games in the SEC next year are at Tennessee, at Texas, at Georgia, and at Ole Miss. And if you can be competitive in some of those games, maybe sneak a win in there, you can win at Tempe in our non-conference, and then you win those – that's a great opportunity to showcase your skill set. Again, you're going to make vastly more money at Oregon. There's no doubt about that. You'll make a ton more money at USC. But do you want to go in your final year of eligibility, learn a new system, or do you want to come show that you're like a pro at this system?
And I just can't believe that Dillon Gabriel is not going to test out the NFL either.
I don't know that
he's completed 4 years of football. Or 5. I mean, I don't. That's
he's small.
One or
he's
the other.
Small, like Kyler Murray, small, but Kyler Murray's showing that you can be at least a starting quarterback in the NFL. I think he needs one more year, unless it's
a packed quarterback class.
And this is pie in the sky, but there's a name that's being floated around that may come out in the transfer portal.
Marvin Harrison Jr.
There is one Arch Manning that might be testing the waters.
He is not going.
He ain't going to Mississippi State. There's no way. If Eli went to Ole Miss and Archie went to Ole Miss, there's no way he goes to State.
But it's a phone call that you make. I'm 95% sure that Ole Miss fans are floating that out to mess with you guys.
Probably.
And everybody's like, because I keep seeing the picture being tweeted out of Lebby walking Arch around campus at Ole Miss, and they're like, here he is, and I'm like. Ole Miss, he's got an Ole Miss shirt on, guys. Chill out. But
that's not happening.
Talking about schedule, I did want to say this. I'm sure you haven't seen this, but Ole Miss's schedule for 2024 got leaked in an email to season ticket holders by accident. Yeah. So I'm going to just go through the schedule. It's a very favorable schedule, but the dates, even the order, was leaked. You've got the first 4 games. It's going to be just like last year. 4 non-conference, 8 SEC games in a row to end the season, which sucks because I loved having that Louisiana Monroe game before Starkville. Furman, MTSU, at Wake, Georgia Southern to start the season. 4-0. Kentucky at home, at South Carolina, at LSU, by Oklahoma at home, at Arkansas, Georgia at home, by the season starting in August, the way the calendar falls.
Sure.
Another bye at Florida, and then the Egg Bowl. And so it's like that's going to suck so bad. Going on the road at Gainesville, and then coming home for the Egg Bowl.
That's a gauntlet. That's a gauntlet.
So let's see.
Well, listen,
it also has the Egg Bowl on Thanksgiving. according to the schedule.
Yeah, I saw that it did get leaked. It's going to be back. At first, they had said it was going to be on
Moved
Saturday, which would have been great. But they put it back on Thanksgiving just to ruin our Thanksgiving again next year. But Drew, we've got plenty of time to talk college football. We got plenty of time to talk next year that's coming up. Let's talk about the Grizz for a few minutes, and I got to go pick up my brother at the airport here in just a little bit. So let's talk about them Grizz, man. Last night, Desmond Bane, welcome to the basketball season, sir. Deuce had a career high, the second highest total in Grizz franchise history, with a 49-piece against a bad Pistons team, and we needed every single one of them to win that freaking basketball game.
Yeah, they pulled away late, and I kind of feel bad because I had that game on mute and was watching the end of it due to some internet issues. So I put it up on my laptop, and I was just in there, and I had it on mute, and I was not catching what was going on. Like, I wasn't watching it that closely, and I looked at the box score afterwards, and was like, oh, crap, Desmond Bane had 49.
49. I was go ahead.
19 of 31 from the field, 7 of 7 free throws, and 4 of 8 from 3. If you'd have told me that Desmond Bane had 49 points and only 4 made threes, I'd have called you a liar.
Yeah, 100%. But he just took over, especially in the second half, and just was cutting at the basket. I too was watching on mute. I was on the phone and hanging out. Real quick side story. This is kind of funny. I was hanging out with new friend of the podcast, Sarah, and out in Texas, and she was watching the game, or I was watching the game. She was kind of hanging out, and she was throwing some dirty clothes at her hamper, and she missed. And she turned around. She's like, "I can play for the Grizz because I missed." And I was like, "Wow."
Did you hang up the phone?
I did. I just put it down. Like, this is
Have you heard from her since?
Nope.
You better not. Better not. This is the kind of friend that he's bringing home to meet me and Haley. So bad start here. Yeah. So I wasn't really following it that close. But if you just close your eyes and I don't tell you what has happened to start the season, I would just lead off with saying your Memphis Grizzlies have won 3 of their last 4 games, and their only loss in that 4 games was a competitive game on the road against Phoenix.
Yeah. And a very competitive game.
Yeah. And so I'm not going to tell you that Detroit is 2-19 this year. I don't know if you saw this. They just finished the imperfect month.
Yes.
Where they went 0-15 in the month of November.
The Lions have more wins than the Pistons.
Yeah. So it's good. I mean, you're kind of trending in the right way. You're getting some a lot more of your core guys to be more contributors just in time to get Ja back. So
we've got 5 more games, man.
Yeah, I was about to say the Grizzlies are currently 6-14, so 5 more games to go until Ja Morant makes his triumphant return to the Memphis Grizzlies lineup, and you're kind of starting to figure it out. I don't want to say that, we have any illusions of grandeur right now. It's been pretty bad to start the season, but as of right now, it's 6-14 overall. They're only 4 games back of the 10 seed. And 5.5 games back of the 6th seed. Sure. And you've played it with one, if not both, arms tied behind your back with LaRavia. I mean, LaRavia's nothing. With Kennard, the other white guy, with Kennard missing significant time and Marcus Smart missing significant time, and Ja Morant missing the first 25 games. You start getting these pieces back that you expected to actually play the season with.
Yeah.
And you can be in the mix late.
Especially with Biyombo's playing big minutes for us. He's filling that Steven Adams void. Jaren's looking much more of the part. He had 38 the other night. You got Dez with 49 last night. Like, the pieces are starting to come together. All we needed was Marcus Smart to call us soft, essentially, in the media. And we've been playing much better basketball since. We are also now, every single game that we've won this year has been a game that Derrick Rose has started in. So let him start till Ja comes back. But we're finally getting healthy. We're piecing it together just in time. Again, there's a real chance that we're in a playoff game or play-in game, maybe like one of the lower seeds, if we can get hot in the back half of the year with Ja coming back and we can get healthy.
Yeah, you're just looking for injuries and chaos to happen on the bottom half of that, on those standings in the Western Conference. The Grizzlies play the best team in basketball on tomorrow night. Can you tell me who the best team in basketball is, Rusty?
It's in the they're in first place in the Western Conference. Crap. It's not one of the traditional powerhouses. Minnesota. It's Minnesota.
It is Minnesota.
Minnesota. I knew I'd get there.
Minnesota is 16-4 on the season, and they're coming to the FedEx Forum tomorrow night. But then you've got Mavericks, Rockets, Thunder, and then the triumphant return on the road in New Orleans. Ja comes back on December 19th.
The rumor is he'll miss that game, and he'll be back for Indiana at home. That's what I'm seeing on Twitter.
There's no way.
What I'm seeing is they're going to hold him out to the home game.
Why?
Why not?
Just for the return?
I'm just saying.
I understand.
I've seen I want him back.
We're still trying to. That's a peer right there. The Pelicans are 12-10. Yeah. You need to win it.
And it's on TNT. Like, it's a national game. But what I've been reading online is that it's going to be that Indiana game at home. I hope it's New Orleans. I hope it's New Orleans.
Yeah.
But there's a real good chance I might sneak. If it's that Indiana game, I'm back in Mississippi. I'll be working up in Tennessee. We might have to make a road trip that night if it is that Indiana game.
So that is December the 21st.
21st,
That's Thursday night.
7 p.m.
Call your boy.
We might be making a road trip. The 2 Buck Sports Podcast might be making a road trip to the Forum, doing a live podcast from the FedEx Forum.
Oh, yeah. We can just set up a table right there on the plaza.
Right there outside.
What are you guys doing? We're recording a podcast. Who are you? You don't know us, but we're just recording a podcast. So.
Yeah. Dave Portnoy gave out written newspapers in Boston for years. We just need to set up a table out front of the Forum, and we're the next Barstool Sports.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, maths on that one.
I mean, yeah, that's it. Even by Mississippi math, that's good math.
Yeah. So let's talk fantasy football for a quick minute.
Then
I'm going to let you go get your brother. So we are entering the last week of the regular season. And this is how the standings look. Right now, you've got my co-host and least favorite friend at the moment, Rusty Buckets, at the 1 seed.
Let's go, Mad Titans.
Titans have a record of 10-3. Is that right?
10-3, baby. The only 10-3 team in the league.
So 10-3, Rusty Witten. The 2 seed, Gotham City Knights. That's Hunter Shaw at 10-4, and then
we got worked by Mad Titans this past weekend.
Yeah. We weren't going to talk about that. This is then we have a 3-way tie for 3rd place between myself, Justin Lumpkin, and Michael Mutters. It's kind of been a logjam all year. And so the way this looks right now, if you look at the projected standings at this moment, it would be Rusty versus Justin Lumpkin, Hunter Shaw versus myself. I would get the 3 seed. And it's really just going to be very interesting how this plays out, because this week I play Justin Lumpkin. And so with a win, I'm in. And with a loss, we're going to be Justin's in. An obvious, he's in, winning in. And so you're going to be looking a lot for points for. So with a win, I'm in. I've got the points for locked down pretty much. I've got a 40-point lead over Justin and an 85-point lead over Mutters. So and again, I would be the 3 seed and Lump would be the 4 seed. If I lose and Justin wins, he would get the 3 seed. Mm-hmm. And if Mutters wins and I lose, I'm out, and Lump and Mutters are going to be in. So it's really a must-win situation for me, or I need to lose and Mutters lose and him not outscore me by like 80. Yeah. which is on the table, if I'm being honest, the way this team's going. Yeah. You hate to see it. Our buddy Poison Ivy's ended on a real stinker, losing 3 in a row to fall to 7-6. He was 7-3 on par with all of us, and just fell off
limping to the finish. Yeah.
Yeah. So the people who are eliminated is Team Farrell, Andrew Neasy, Jordan Woodruff, Dr. Patrick Jones, and Zach Jones. Still in contention is Rusty, me, Hunter, Lump, Mutters, Cousin Kirk, and Aaron Ivy. Kirk has a 17% chance at the playoffs, and Aaron has a 1%.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Yeah. So to show you how tight this is for the last two seeds between three teams, ESPN projects playoff percentage: me 64, Lump 64, and Mutters 55. Mutters has to have a win and a loss.
They need some help.
Mutters could take with a loss and a win for me. He could overtake Lump by outscoring him by 35 or 37 points.
Yep.
So there's a possibility that he gets in with a loss. But I mean, all we do here at Waddle Vision is we just focus on what we can focus on, control what we can control, one play at a time,
Sure.
one down at a time. Just know your assignment, know your
That's
role, and execute. We are projected to have a nail biter here, 117 to 122. I'm projected to lose. But let me tell you something, Rusty, and I'm just going to go on the record right now. I have taken this team, this ragtag bunch of just hardworking men to 8-5 without having Justin Jefferson since week number 6.
Yeah.
The 101. I feel like I deserve a trophy for taking this group in a hard 12-team league to have a team good enough without Justin Jefferson to make it into the playoffs. And let me tell you, it's a world record coming. If I can get in these playoffs and Justin Jefferson get healthy, you better just look out, because we coming.
I don't know, man.
I have to give a shout out too, because my wife would kill me. In our family league, she had the 101. She also took Justin Jefferson, and she made the playoffs.
Let's go.
In our family league as
What
the
up, Haley?
seed. And so she plays her brother-in-law, which will be really interesting for Christmas time coming around. And I did not. I had the best 5-7 team that could possibly been assembled. I don't understand how I didn't go undefeated. I'm still scratching my head.
Yeah, well. Back to our league, Cousin Kirk, I know you listen to this podcast in your trooper car. Fix your running back situation. Right now, I'm projected to win 123 to 109. He's got Bijan Robinson starting and showing a 0-point total. It's not looking good for him to play this week. So fix your lineup, man. If we're going to do this thing, let's do it right.
Yeah, and Justin Lumpkin, if you are listening to this podcast, which I know you are, you need to fix your lineup too. I need you to put in Christian Kirk and Odell Beckham and, some crap players. Get all these good players out of here.
There you go.
I am not about winning the ugly way. I am totally cool with winning the wrong way.
Listen, that's what happened. That's how I beat. I won this past week, man. It's I beat Gotham City Knights this week because the bye weeks hit him hard.
Oh,
he had like 7
we all
guys
had it.
time, man. And so I got lucky at the right time. So Drew,
all right,
wrap us up, buddy.
Yeah, so I just want to tell everybody thank you for listening to an episode of the Two Buck Sports Podcast. You can find this continually every week on the Apple Podcast app, Spotify. Like Rusty said, you can watch us on YouTube, and why some of you do, I don't understand. But you can continue to watch us on YouTube at the number 2 Buck Sports Podcast. Interact with us on Instagram, on Twitter. We'd love to hear from you. And until next week, Rusty, you will be here in Mississippi to do our first our second ever podcast together within the confines of the state of Mississippi.
Great state, baby.
Everybody, we're looking forward to next week. So
let's go. All right, Drew.
Play our music.
Let's go. All right. See y'all next week.
See you guys.